Truth Crave has a July 4th question that goes well beyond the fireworks. If independence is a condition and not just a calendar event, how much of it do Americans still actually have?
Jonathan MQZ covers a lot of ground in this batch. Democratic erosion, corporate extraction of labor markets, migration and national identity, and the friction between media platforms and the people who use them. Let's start with what it means to celebrate freedom while losing it.
The 4th of July piece opens a real tension. Americans treat independence as a historical achievement, rather than an ongoing condition that can be surrendered quietly through complacency and concentrated power.
The Post puts it directly. We tell ourselves we live in a fully sovereign republic, while ignoring the growing influence of concentrated wealth over our democratic institutions. That is the core claim: celebration as a substitute for scrutiny.
The upshot is that the institutions meant to catch this drift have drifted too. When media organizations optimize for ratings over accountability, the warning system goes silent.
The companion piece on campaign lies sharpens that into a concrete proposal. If a politician campaigns on one set of principles, wins office through those promises, and then governs in direct contradiction to them, that is not strategy. The argument is that it should be treated as fraud, with legal remedies including recall elections, ethics investigations, and financial penalties.
Which means the problem is not just that power shifts, it is that the mechanism for correcting the shift has been captured too.
Corporate extraction is where a lot of that shift lands in everyday life. Rents, wages, healthcare costs. That is the next territory.
The private equity piece asks a pointed question. While politicians and media personalities directed public anger at immigrants, who was actually restructuring the economy?
The Post names the pattern plainly. Americans were told to blame the family crossing the border instead of asking why billion-dollar financial firms were buying up their neighborhoods, cutting jobs, and squeezing every last dollar out of the economy. The Post calls it a bait and switch.
So the scapegoat was doing nothing, and the mechanism doing the damage was operating without much public scrutiny at all.
A separate piece on the H-1B pipeline extends this into a specific accountability question. Companies filing thousands of visa petitions while simultaneously cutting domestic jobs and collecting public subsidies. The argument is for conditional subsidies tied to measurable job retention, with clawback provisions if benchmarks are not met. A third piece goes further, documenting the private equity pattern across healthcare, housing, and retail, and describing the author writing directly to elected representatives to demand regulatory action.
From financial extraction at home, the conversation moves across borders to who gets to migrate and on what terms. This segment asks whether the logic used to reject anti-immigrant rhetoric in the United States is being applied consistently, because some online spaces in Mexico are now applying similar language to Americans moving there.
The Post draws a careful distinction. Colonization involved conquest, political domination, the imposition of foreign institutions, and the denial of sovereignty to entire peoples. An American nomad in Mexico City, because they can no longer afford rent in the USA, is not doing any of those things.
The argument is not that gentrification concerns are illegitimate. It is that blaming individual migrants for structural economic problems is a habit that rarely produces real solutions, regardless of which direction the migration runs.
The Post holds that indigenous pride and xenophobia are separable, that the same principles used to reject ethnic nationalism elsewhere should apply when nationalist assumptions appear in any community. Solidarity, not resentment, is the frame proposed for Mexico's future. The question of who controls the platforms where these debates happen is where things get complicated next.
This segment covers a lot of terrain, from a billionaire's global footprint to an algorithm quietly making your posts invisible to Spain winning the World Cup.
The Elon Musk piece is the anchor, and it makes a broad case. on his family background, his company's labor record, and his recent political activities. The Post states he addressed a far-right rally in London whose speech was condemned by the UK Prime Minister as dangerous and inflammatory, and argues that, taken together, these elements position him as a threat to democratic accountability rather than a straightforward tech innovator.
What this means in practice is that a single individual controls infrastructure, rockets, satellites, a major social platform, while simultaneously amplifying movements that critics say undermine the institutions meant to check that kind of power.
The social media piece picks up the platform side of that directly. After noticing months of unusually low engagement, the author asked Grok whether the account had been shadow banned. The response indicated strong signs of limited visibility. The Post's larger argument is that when platforms distribute content through opaque algorithms users cannot inspect, participation starts to look like unpaid labor. Users generate advertising revenue and behavioral data, while the platform captures nearly all of the economic value.
Which is structurally the same complaint as the private equity segment, just running on attention instead of capital.
Two lighter pieces round out this theme. The World Cup piece celebrates Spain's 2026 FIFA victory and the tradition of Latin Americans temporarily rediscovering Spanish ancestry for about 24 hours. The Post calls it football-induced amnesia and means it warmly. And the Disney piece makes a genuine case that the studio's return to hand-drawn animation is the right moment to finally deliver a true Little Mermaid sequel, one that moves the story forward rather than remaking what already exists.
Entertainment as the one space where the ask is simple. Just give people something they actually want.
The thread running through all of this is the same question at different scales. Who does the system actually serve? And who is being asked to look elsewhere while the answer plays out?
Independence, labor markets, migration, platforms, same question, different address. Worth asking before the next fireworks go up.